Gerald, I want to talk about our upcoming LinkedIn class, an NC State technology training solution, getting more clients using LinkedIn and Twitter. And LinkedIn is not the LinkedIn we grew up with. It's evolved, it's changed. The techniques and tricks that worked before of, I'm going to just be able to get directly to CFO and CEO are not so today.
That's correct, Martin. I started using LinkedIn in 2005. The site was launched in 2003. I know you started very early.
2004, yeah.
2004. So we're both right around Martin's before they reached 1 million. I joined just after they hit 1 million. Now they're claiming they're around 600 million. And believe it or not, it's a teenager. It's a 15-year-old site.
Yeah. And so it's been around for a while, so the techniques have evolved, and our class is going to address that. Because it's not just, I'm going to be able to reach someone like I used to.
Yeah, the novelty's worn off, and LinkedIn as a platform, now that it's owned by Microsoft, has got to be monetized, and they're doing a great job of doing that. And actually, that's why sponsor ads and sponsor updates are so prevalent in feeds.
Yeah, and we'll mention that a little bit in the class of showing how that's a next step for you, but also what is the utility of it today. And we want to talk about a few of those items right now. Some of them are the fact of it's still a really good secondary validation or third-party validation of you.
Yeah, so right, and in today's world, everything has a brand, and every brand has to be managed.
Yeah.
You have two choices in today's world, Martin. You can choose to manage your brand and manage how the market sees your personal brand, or you can let the market make the decision. If you're going to let the market decide what your brand is, then you have no control, and you're not sure if you've got the right message.
So the question is your LinkedIn still a good customer-facing profile or not? That's the fundamental. And that's different than just catching their attention or something else.
Yeah, so great point. LinkedIn is your default homepage and your window to the world.
Yep. It's still extremely well indexed by Google, which means it's being found in the search. So when it comes to the articles, the first thing is, are you creating the content that can also be used just in a search on Google, can be used as what I call sales collateral. I send you an article I've written that you want to see. I mean, it's got to be good content.
Right.
This throwing noise on once a day or you've got to contact them every so often doesn't work like it used to.
No, it doesn't. Actually, Martin, you bring up a really good point about the content and putting stuff out there. Today's world is not about putting stuff out there. Today's world is about finding leading economic indicators and finding leading trends. And how do you find that? So I'll give you an example. An article came across my feed many years back in 2003, and the article was titled, "Why is Google Afraid of Amazon?" And what you just talked about, Google indexing LinkedIn sites and what will people look for on Google? Well, LinkedIn is the default site for indexing, searching business people and business trends. And when I saw this article, "Why is Google Afraid of Amazon?" it was because of that very specific thing. In 2013, the market was saying people are going to go to Amazon first because everything you want to buy is going to be better indexed on Amazon. Why go to Google and say, I want to look for the quantities, quantities and specifications for a new phone when I'm going to buy it on Amazon? I'll just go to Amazon, get my list of phones, and buy. So I've already cut Google out of the picture. That kind of information is what you got to share on LinkedIn.
And you need to curate it where you're explaining why they should look at it if you're going to do it. Let's
That's
not
correct.
Throw it up there.
Right.
Let's explain what it is and so forth.
No, you're spot on, Martin. So an example of that was while I was in China, I shared a story about how the Chinese government was finding all the international automobile companies and making them raise their price on their resale repair parts. Okay, so when you're looking at your stuff on LinkedIn and you're saying to your clients, hey, look, the Chinese government is going to make you raise your prices. Well, what does that mean to you as an employee of those automobile manufacturers?
Right.
Oh, well, there went the price. It just went up by 25%. That means our profit margins just got smaller. That means I got to work harder to make the same money. That means my raise might have just gotten lost. And if you're not saying to people, how is that government tax going to impact your job and what do you got to do differently, then it's just another news story.
The other important value on LinkedIn isn't directly finding the person, it's finding what we call the bridge builder, the contact person.
Yeah.
That's being given the job to go find people. They're still out there. They're still active on it. But this is part of what we'll include in the class is who are those people? How do you locate them and find them as well?
Right. So that's a really good point, Martin. There's more people in a company that are going to know who you are, and what are they going to say to their senior management team when you surprisingly walk in and you're connected to them? Are they going to say to that senior management team, "Oh, I've known that person for a while. We really don't want to do business with them"? Or are they going to say, "Oh, I'm really glad to see you brought my friend in," and now they want to be aligned with you because you've got their boss's attention, right? So that's really what you want to be doing. You really want to have you want to help those people. You want to find out. They might not be the decision maker, but you always want to be thinking, how can I make that person look better?
Yeah. And your strategic allies on LinkedIn that are active on them. Not all may be on there. So if they're on there, you're referring business back and forth. It's worthwhile noting them, mentioning them, commenting on them, supporting them. But it's better to put a comment than just a like if you have something with it.
You're absolutely spot on. One of the guys that we know, Neil Isaac, he's really good at telling people what's going on for networking.
Yeah.
And if you follow Neil, every Sunday you'll see his LinkedIn post about here's networking events, and then you can shift through his networking news and decide where do you want to attend that's right for you. And Neil will make introductions. And so, in fact, Neil introduced us a long time ago. So, again, if you're not talking to guys like Neil, or if you're not talking to people like Barbara Henfield, who's you're talking to and you see they're active and they have a big network, then you're really not helping yourself, right? And in today's world, if you're not connected to people and you're not helping them and they're not keeping you in the front of their head and they're not thinking about you, then they're not gonna make a referral. So back to Barbara Henfield, what's really interesting is I heard one of her podcasts about 8 months ago, and at the end she told a cute little story. And I'm not going to say it here.
Yeah. Right.
However, every now and then I'll say to Barbara, and I'll refer back to that podcast, and she's always laughing about it because she knows I listened to the podcast to the end, because that's where that cute little story was. And so that's what you got to do. That's how you make that really, really personal connection.
Yeah, and not only that, people aren't always using their active email on LinkedIn like they used to. So you have to, again, this is how do you use it? What's your first digital impression? Understanding that lead indicators, as we talked about it, showing customer insight that you understand their problems better than the competition does, and you're using it. So it's really a tool along with other good practices in social selling and working that you're going to use, and that's what we're going to teach it as well. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about it as I call it the first level Rolodex. People are comfortable. We meet. It might be a good way to start the connection to occur in meeting people. And then I decide if I'm going to bring it into my nimble secondary to that, or I may grab it and add it to it. So it's a beginning way to stay connected to people, which is what it was originally intended for, as a kind of a network. It still takes the idea of 6 degrees of separation and brings it down to 3. It's just if those people are ghost people where they aren't active, it's not as easy to interact with them. So you have to have a new strategy.
That's spot on, Martin. I love the comment about the ghost people versus ghosting.
Right.
Gyms are famous for having ghost memberships, right? We talked about that as we prepared for this. Gyms hold a gym, where you work out. Their whole business model is based on they can hold 250 in any hour, and they have 3,000 members, and they're counting on 90% of those members never showing up.
Right.
But they get that money, and it's just it's great. You don't want to be a ghost member on LinkedIn because that means, first off, there's a lot of things that I can't really speak about that LinkedIn does with ghost members, and you just don't want to be there. Secondly, again, it's back to that window dressing and window to the world. If you're not there, then how do I know that you're not on top of your game if you're not paying attention to the trends? I remember when I was in China, I went to this MBA school, and they had a networking event where the CEO of Air Asia Express, he said he's on Twitter all the time, and he said he's on LinkedIn all the time and Facebook all the time to see what the market is doing. If your CEO is on Facebook, you better be there.
Right. To understand it. The other thing is permission granted information. I met someone years ago and I saw they were meeting for coffee, and I called them up afterwards and I said, did you guys talk about you both played rugby? Did you talk about you both were in a Bible study and a few other things? And he goes, well, those didn't come up, and those were private enough, I didn't bring them up. And I said, I'm looking at the guy's LinkedIn profile. He says, interest, Bible study. He gave you permission on LinkedIn to discuss it.
That's right.
He spelled it out. So this is what I call permission granted information. And really maximizing that, because if it's on Facebook, no, you don't have permission to talk about it for most people.
Right.
So you have a place to get permission granted data. Are you using that correctly?
Right. So that's spot on, Martin. Granted information is if you're looking through LinkedIn and you see something, it's the best way to get a connection accepted through granted information. Just this week, I connected with a person who is working with a charity organization, and I'm trying to get a marketing event with her, the owner of the company. And I reached out to her, and I saw that she lived in Kunming, China. And so I wrote, hey, we were in China at the same time. She accepted, and she's, now I have one more access into that company because that lady accepted me, and she accepted me because I wrote an interesting, connection request, and I specifically talked about her China experience.
Cool. One more thing I want to talk about with this is I want to talk about Twitter. Because we're talking about LinkedIn and Twitter, and people still kind of underestimate some of the power of Twitter. Twitter is 100% searchable. This is valuable for media, contact people of authority who have a large public presence. So when we use them together properly, we can reach out and find out what's breaking in accurate data and inaccurate data on Twitter, because the news still often will break there, and the incorrect news will break there. So that's why we've included that in the class to understand how to use public lists for acknowledgement, private lists for finding out data you need about them, and having it as possibly a doorway to get to someone that might be part of the bridge belt or actively on Twitter, because since it's so public, again, this isn't going to Snapchat to contact someone. This is more of a public interaction and finding out what's breaking and how to use it and trends. So that's another piece I wanted to include in this because, again, LinkedIn, we're presenting as one of the tools interacting with your other tool case for connecting to people.
And there's a lot of tools. I mean, at the end of the day, LinkedIn is just one of them. And it's your advertising platform for free to 600 million people.
Yeah.
Right? And if you focus on it and you do, there's things you got to do and there's things you can't do. And going into the class is what we're going to help you understand.
And the etiquettes of communicating. Yeah. So you're not the one there going, how do I report this person?
Yeah, well, and what do you do with people? Actually, that's a really good point. And just quickly, you need to learn how to, if you want to clean up and get garbage off, you got to report it. And we can show you how to do that.
And we're going to show you how to hide people that are annoying you that they aren't notified.
Yeah, right.
Lots of tips in it, too.
Exactly.
You can do this.
Yeah.
When you see what I call Snapchat post on LinkedIn, it's okay to hide that stuff.
Oh, it's very okay to hide it.
And it's okay to clean up, and it's okay to disconnect from people. And so it's really the more effective use of your time on this platform.
Yeah, that's a very important part, Martin. If you're not thinking about how you use your time there, then, what is it, right?
Last I want to just talk about is people. I've had people very successful use this class even for selling themselves as a job, because the best job hunting technique I know is what I call the return on investment of you. So that's something you can get as well. The product of you. How are you using it as an educational tool into the next job and opportunity? And LinkedIn still serves that well.
Yeah, LinkedIn is really good for figuring out what kind of boss you're going to go work for.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and what kind of company you're going to work for. And, if you're not, if you don't know what they're going to, what their learning agility mindset is, if you don't know if they're profitable, I mean, how many people really want to go to work for I don't know if I should say this, but Cisco or GE right now. I mean, they're
right.
still laying people off.
Right, at a high rate.
You know,
Or it might be an opportunity to get in the door. Well, you know,
I mean,
if
you
something.
Right, if you want to be the CEO of Cisco,
That could be it.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are just a few tips. You can find out more, but I just wanted to get together and talk a little bit about our class. I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate the past experience with Greg, because you had reached out to work with Greg before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you were the first person that I wanted to start working with. And of course, your experience of working with LinkedIn in China and having enough legacy experience with it. But that's where it started. So really, thanks, Greg, for all that you did. And we miss you.
Yeah, and it's I'm really disappointed that I couldn't get a chance to meet him.
Yeah.
So, if I remember, he started off with linking the triangle.
Linking the triangle. He built that thing up.
Right.
4 to 6 hours a night.
Yeah.
I mean, I posted when he passed in there, and the people who took it over were wonderful, generous of it, and we didn't even touch on groups in this time, but that's still a good group to be part of, and he left that behind.
Yeah, even when I was in China and I first started using LinkedIn, I noticed there was this group called Linking the Triangle, and I just now realized that was his name on it, and he was Greg Heyer. So I had learned about Greg Heyer in China through LinkedIn. So that's how broad the situation can be, the platform can be.
Excellent. We'll look forward to seeing you in our classes, and thanks for taking the time. Please comment or share if you find this useful. Have a great day. This is Martin Brossman.
And this is Jerel Bonner. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you soon.